How's everyone doing? You alright? It's Cody there. I'm back. If you subscribe to my channel, you know what I'm about. If you don't subscribe to my channel, my name's Cody Lachey. I'm a reformed criminal. I now do interviews with the media on gun crime, knife crime, prison issues, prison reforms, policing issues, gangs, homelessness, drugs, legalise, all that stuff. Today I'm here to speak about radicalisation and extremism within prisons. I say this as a former British Army soldier who nearly became Muslim, who nearly converted to Islam. Now, the reason I nearly converted to Islam personally is, and I'm ashamed to say this, I was mentally drained and mentally weak at the time. Right, my opinion, I was being brainwashed. That's my honest thing. Looking back now, as a headstrong 32-year-old man, I was weak mentally and I was in a bad place. Also, as a former soldier, when I left the army, I was homeless, right? And I see the corruption within the police and the government and the MPs and stuff. And the government didn't do anything for me while I was homeless. It was down to an army charity called SAFA that helped me, right? So I had a big distaste for the British government and the British way of life. And the Muslims that I came involved with, I ended up dealing drugs for. And they started telling me about Allah, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Jesus was a prophet of Allah and he's going to walk the earth again. All about Hajj and Umrah, the Muslim pilgrimages over to Mecca and everything. And it was just something that at the time it really spoke to me. Another reason as well is simply because I was always the black sheep of my family. I wanted to belong. I've always wanted to be accepted and to belong. And these Asian guys, these Muslims, they accepted me for me. And like I say, I end up becoming part of them. And then the next time they end up going to prison and stuff. And eventually a few years down the line, I became involved. I went to prison. And while I was in prison at Strangeways in Manchester and also Forest Bank here in Salford, these Muslim gangs are rife within the prisons, and prisons are very cliquey places, right? You're either in a clique or you're not in a clique, and you've got gang members running with gang members, right? I'm a former gang member as well, but you've got gang members running with gang members, right? You've got the Scouts, example being from Manchester, lad. Scousers that were in the prison on the wings and that. Whatever wing they was on, they stuck together because they're Scousers in a Manc prison. They're thinking, yeah, we're from Liverpool, they're from Manchester, we could get it here, right? So they're strength in numbers, yeah. The Muslims, right, they go after, approach the weaker members of the wings, right? Your loners, the ones that have got mental health issues, that are mentally probably not as strong as the other prisoners on the wing, that are locking themselves behind the doors on association, things like that. And it's a big thing. If you need to belong in prison and you get approached, whether it's fear of being rejected or wanting to be accepted, you accept these invitations into these cliques, into these Muslim gangs. Some people do it for different reasons. Some people play on it. Some people do it, I'm becoming a Muslim boss to the screw because they want better food, right? Because the halal menus within prisons are better than the shit that the lads are having. It's kosher, the food, the meat and everything, and the fish. It's kosher, so that's why they go for it. Some is just out of fear. Some is they want to be accepted. Some is because they're scared to say no. They fear if they say no that these Muslim gangs will go after them. Where it's you're either with us or you're against us sort of mentality. You've only got to look at Levi Belfield, right? Millie Dowler's killer. And he killed a few other people, Amelia Granger and all them. God bless them, may they rest in peace, right? And he converted to Islam. Now, without knowing him and without knowing why he converted, personally, I think it's because of the reason that he was in prison for the murders of these women. Because normally it'd be targeted and it'd be attacked and it'd be scalded and it'd be shanked and it'd be stabbed up and everything else. But no, he converted to Islam. I think he now goes by the name of Yusuf something within the prison. You've got to look at Anjem Chowdhury, the radical preacher, right? After 20 years of him spouting his shit on the streets of Britain, here in London, in the UK. He's now looking at 10 years in prison because he's been promoting ISIS and Islamic State. Anjem Choudhury is the biggest. I was on actually in 2013 in the wake of the death of Lee Rigby, who was killed by Michael Adebolajo and Michael Adebowale, who were radicalised by Anjem Choudhury. I was on. It's now Good Morning Britain. I think it was GMTV at the time. I was on that programme from Manchester. And Anjem Choudhury was actually on the programme too. He was live from London. And I'll be honest with you, it's a good job they didn't put me in the studio with him, because I would have attacked him. I would kick the shit out of him. Anjem Choudhury to me is a British Osama bin Laden. He is a massive, massive threat to the security of Britain. Right, anyway, back to the prison thing. Liz Truss, the Justice Secretary today, has said that they're going to have these jihadi prisons and stuff. It's been labelled by jihadi prisons by the media and stuff, right? But like, they're talking about isolating and moving these prisoners regularly so that they don't have time to associate. But look, right, first things first, right? The government are tightening the purse strings across the board. So how are they going to fund this, right? The best thing they can do is build a prison, a max security prison, so a Cat A prison, and put all the Muslim extremists in there. But how can you differentiate between a Muslim and a Muslim extremist? Because, in my opinion, from what I saw and from what I read and from what my experiences are, the only difference between a Muslim and a Muslim extremist is a Muslim extremist takes literally to the extreme what he reads in the Quran. Now, do some research on that comment and come back to me. Looking back now, and like I say, I've got Muslim friends, I can speak the language. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, I can go on, right? I can speak the language, right? So I've got Muslim friends, but like the sole aim, in my opinion, of Islam is to outbreed us, right? And these extremist views are to kill us, kill kafirs, non-believers. That's what it's called, kafirs. But kill the non-believers, and by killing the non-believers and outbreeding us, the Islam spreads. And I think the sole aim of Islam, whether you're a moderate Muslim and you pray a few times, or you're hardcore, you pray 5 times a day, you go Jummah on a Friday and all this stuff, the sole aim of Islam is to take over the world. And the way that Islam is spreading like wildfire, it's the fastest growing religion in the world, right? You've got so many different, like, there's whites, there's blacks that convert to Islam. Cat Stevens, the singer, he's now known as Yusuf Islam. Muhammad Ali, he was a Muslim. Prince Nassim Hamid, the boxer, he was Muslim. Mike Tyson was Muslim. So there's a lot of, that's how fast and widespread it is. But within the prisons, like I say, it's fear. It's like, there's certain prisons that I would not want to be locked up in. As a non-believer now, there's certain prisons I wouldn't like to be in, like Belmarsh, for example. Belmarsh to me is simply a Muslim prison, because the amount of terror suspects that are held there and stuff like that, and the one thing as well, right? This with Liz Truss, this new Justice Secretary, saying that she's going to be doing all this, she's going to isolate all these extremists and stuff. Like I said, how can you differentiate between a Muslim and a Muslim extremist? You can't. It's all down to like spouting radical views and stuff like that. I don't think you can differentiate. But then the first stumbling block for this thing is going to be human rights. The first. If I'm Anjem Choudhury, right, who's currently locked up in Belmarsh, right, my first line of defence, the first thing I'm saying to my solicitor is, listen, fucking throw the human rights cards in. and human rights will see him on. We'll stop it before it's. We'll stop this Liz Truss isolation prison, like putting extremists in isolation before it even begins. Trust me on that. Trust me. Mark my words, right, and write that down. And like I say, I've seen a lot in the media today where people saying, "Oh, like isolating extremists won't stop it." Yeah, it fucking will. It will stop the spread of it. If you've got a fire, right, and you leave the door open, right, it's going to spread in it. If you lock the door off, close all the windows, yeah, the fire will not spread. Well, it will spread because it burns through the fucking walls. But I know what I mean when I say that anyway. But yeah, I'm not racist. I've got nothing against Muslims at all. We can't demonise all Muslims as terrorists and everything else. However, like I say, the reasons I nearly converted are simply because I was mentally weak. I was in a bad place. I tell you who plays a big part as well in this is the imam. The imams, like to people that don't know who an imam is or what an imam is like a Christian vicar, like a preacher. He's like an Islamic preacher, right? And they're very, very active within prisons. The prison, while I was in Strangeways, the imam actually came to my cell and gave me a copy of the Quran in English. Again, I had already had one, so he gave me another one because they wanted me to convert. So I think imams play a big part within not radicalizing, but allowing it, like swapping messages, things like that. Things can get through prisons. The thing is, right, you can't stop writing letters, right? You can't stop phone calls from the prisons, right? So you can't. There's a lot of, and then you've got they've got the human rights like side of things and stuff like that. So I don't think it's practical. Does it need to happen? Is radicalization in prisons a dangerous fucking thing? Absolutely, yeah. Are there a lot of violent, like, prisoners across the board within prisons? The people, I see Islam within prisons as like a gang. It's like a gang. They need strength in numbers. Right? Prison is a very paranoid place, right? Very, very fucking paranoid place, right? And like I say, it's all about strength in numbers, right? So you recruit who you can, right? And like I say, people recruit because they're paranoid, because they want to belong, because they're scared, because they don't want to say no, because they fear that they'll be attacked or shanked or whatever. But Islam within prisons is a massive, massive, massive problem, and I don't think we can stop it. But like I say, by isolating the prisoners, right? I get that, but like I say, prisons are already overcrowded. So you can't fit 2 into 1 like across the board because you're going to run out of space eventually. So what does that mean? That means building another prison. So you're better off building another prison, right? Bugging all the cells, monitoring every bit of mail that goes in and out. They don't do that at the moment. Unless you're on PPU, Public Protection Unit, that won't happen. And put all these Muslims and Muslim extremists in that prison. That's the only way you can really stop it. But it's not a real situation, and I don't think it'll ever come to fruition. People like this Liz Truss speak about these issues, but in reality, it's not viable because human rights are in the way. The government won't fund another prison. Like I say, you can't just build wings on top of wings. Right, what are they going to do? What are they going to do with Anjem Choudhury, right? Stick him in fucking solitary. Stick him and his co-defendant, stick him in solitary for what? 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. He's looking at 10 years in prison, and then bam, he's out on the streets. And then he'll be hate-filled because of the way that he's been treated. And he'll probably become more hardcore in recruiting and radicalising people than he was before. But the one thing I'll say, look at Anjem Choudhury, right? He radicalises people and he believes in this ideology, Sharia law and everything else, right? Why is he not committing suicide bombs attacks himself? because they do it. They use weaker members of society, people that are not as headstrong, people that are not as intelligent. They're the ones that are singled out and have this ideology drilled into their head. And once once the seed is planted, it grows and it germinates and it spreads. And like I say, it might. Like I say, I'm waffling now. I'm absolutely knackered, so I don't know if I'm even making any sense. I'm not. I'm really really tired, and my thought process is a bit all over. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. People that are from like people. There's so many issues within prisons. Like I say, you've got race. You've got drug wars, gang wars, race hate, race religious hate, gangs. There's a lot of hatred, a lot of like violence within prisons. You've got less and less prison officers. You've got more violent and volatile inmates, right? Adding to the mix legalized drugs, mobile phones to arrange in the bringing of drugs and parcels and fucking legalize, right? Adding to the mix with the race wars and the drug wars and everything else, and you've got all the recipe for the fucking for an explosive turn of events. And like I say, how dangerous is it? Just think about this for a moment, right? I'm a former British Army soldier, right? That's trained with firearms, right? And I nearly converted to Islam. Just think about that for a minute. If I would have converted, right? If I would have converted and followed this ideology, right, would have made me a very, very dangerous person. I've been arrested for firearms on the outside. I've been arrested for offensive weapons on the outside. So just imagine, right? Obviously it's hypothetical now because obviously I don't think like that, and I'm not mentally weak. But just think about that for a minute. A British Army soldier that knows like how the army train people and like signs and things like that, and firearms training and all the training that I received from the army. If that got into the hands of the enemy, obviously the enemy is being Muslim extremist, Islamic State and stuff. That's a very very dangerous like recipe for disaster. There's a guy now actually that's in Strangeways that was arrested for trying to travel to Syria to join Islamic State, and he's a former soldier. He wanted to fight. He didn't want to fight against Islamic State. He wanted to fight for Islamic State. Him and his friend are currently sat in Strangeways. That just shows you like how dangerous it is as for a former soldier to try and go down that route. But anyway, guys, I'm waffling. I'm tired. I don't know if this has made much sense. I'm going to get some sleep, and I'm going to do a proper interview tomorrow with a big worldwide news thing, and we'll see how that goes. All right, guys. God bless. Take care. Bye. Bye.